Listen, folks, I am here now with Charles Daniels, who is the president of CWA Local 4123. Charles, tell us who the local represents, first of all.
That's the Communications Workers of America. CWA represents telco operators. We have digital workers, public healthcare, education workers, airline attendants. There's just a lot under that CWA umbrella.
And so in my experience, CWA, or Communication Workers of America, is one of the most active unions on this issue of supporting the Protecting the Right to Organize Act, or the PRO Act. That's what we're voting on here in the House today. Tell me about, why this is important to CWA, to the working class of this country. I mean, where are you coming from on this as a CWA local president?
It's because we live it every single day. Every single day, the labor laws that apply to our folks impact us, and they can be very detrimental because they're not being adhered to. I actually read something recently from the Economic Policy Institute that said during an organizing campaign, 40% of companies are charged with violating labor laws.
That's 40%.
And those are just the ones that are charged, because a lot of people don't even bother to place the charges because there's no repercussions for them. The National Labor Relations Board, there's no penalty arm, there's no enforcement arm. They can't do anything about these folks that are breaking the law.
And the PRO Act will change that in so many ways. So tell me so let's see. The PRO Act would, first of all, let workers choose whether to have an election on the site at work, or electronically, or in a neutral location. It would make a quick timeline to have the election. It would say the boss is not a party to the whole proceedings. Mm-hmm. It would say that if the boss violates your rights, they have serious monetary penalties, and even executives can be held personally liable, not like go to jail, but pay a personal significant fine. And ultimately, if you file for an election with a majority of cards of people signed up, and then you lose the election and the NLRB determines that the boss destroyed the majority illegally, the NLRB can even say that's illegal. Your goal was to crush the union. You recognize the union and bargain a contract.
Precisely. And what an amazing idea that our laws actually have ramifications. I mean, think about this with any other law, right? If the law for speeding, if you're driving 120 miles per hour down 696, and the only thing the government did was send you a letter saying to slow down, well, who's going to slow down? And then you got all these people out there racing. Everyone on the road is more dangerous. And that's exactly what's happening with workers. These companies have been speeding for years because there's nothing to stop them, and workers deserve to have their rights respected. They should mean something. And one of the things I really like about this legislation is that it's nuanced. It's not just a sledgehammer. If you have a small company that's doing a small infraction of the law, because sometimes they don't even know they're breaking the law, right, well, they can impose a small fine. But if you have a large corporations that's egregiously violating the law, then you drop the hammer on them. Because Congressman, there are CEOs out there that'll be on Twitter bragging about breaking labor laws publicly, brazenly. Why? Because there's no repercussions for them. There's no consequences. And that's wrong. Workers deserve better.
I went to Bessemer, Alabama last week to stand with the workers down there at an Amazon warehouse who were trying to form a union with RWDSU, which is part of UFCW.
God bless them.
They said that what Bezos was down there, he flew down there on his private jet or whatever when we were there. But what does he care? I mean, I don't think he cares about those workers at all. I mean, and with all the technology today, I mean, I imagine your members at the big companies are subject to a lot of these surveillance and all this kind of stuff as well.
Sure, absolutely. And they'll watch over you every single second. And I guarantee you, if you do something that's detrimental to them, they will hold you accountable. But like you mentioned, currently, there's no class action litigation that a worker can take. The PRO Act changes that. It gives the worker the ability to engage in litigation by themselves or to join up with other workers. And it's not just a penalty for lost wages, which right now I think all the board can do is impose lost wages minus what you've made in the interim. Exactly. This will actually have pain and suffering, damage that are done. So if a company ruins your life, they should be held accountable for it.
Yes, absolutely. So let's say this became law, and of course we got to get the Senate to pass it. That's a whole difficult thing. But if we pass this thing, and Joe Biden is eager to sign it, I can tell you that, what do you think would happen to CWA in Michigan? What would the practical implications be for workers that you represent or that might want to organize with you?
I'll tell you exactly what'll happen, and I'll look to the past to tell you what our future would be with this, right? Because we've seen this play out before. This has all happened previously. During the 20s, the roaring 20s, the business was booming. The stock market was a runaway freight train. In the 1928 presidential election, when Hoover won, people were stoked that they had this businessman in the White House and we were going to be making money forever. And then in 1929, the bottom falls out, the Great Depression sets in, and you have all this suffering that goes on afterwards. And Hoover couldn't fix it because running a business is not the same thing as running the government. And you needed someone like FDR to get in there and empower workers because he understands that you build with a solid foundation, that you build from the bottom up. And when you give those workers those rights, they can actually create the society, this amazing society that we now currently live in. But Congressman, it's been chipped away at for the past 50 years with supply side economics, with the trickle down. Union membership has been steadily declining. And as it has, income inequality levels have been rising. Just you can look at the two charts and just you can't help but see the correlation, right? And there's only so far you can slide on barbed wire. Eventually, the check's going to come due.
Yeah. Well, you are so right. And you know, this morning I took 5 minutes on the floor of the house. I took a chart that showed that it was actually a chart about how the income inequality in this country is almost exactly perfectly in inverse proportion to workers being in unions. And one of the things that's notable about the chart is right after the National Labor Relations Act was passed, for the next 10 years, the number of workers in unions went up astronomically and income inequality came down at the same rate. So if you're saying that's what we're going to do right now, hallelujah, because that would be the best thing that could happen in this country.
There's a breaking point. At some point, the workers who are producing something, that are making something, they're no longer going to be able to afford those products. And when that happens, the only recourse the company is going to have is to let go of those workers. And then they can't afford more stuff. And it's this cycle of downhill. It's a race to the bottom all of a sudden. And it's not like we haven't seen this, so we certainly can prepare for it and fix it now. We have hindsight, so we can be blessed with foresight. And that's what the PRO Act does. It addresses this problem before it becomes an epidemic, because it will.
In a really 21st century way, right? With independent contractors, misclassification, and all that. All right, well, Charles, thank you so much for joining us. Go CWA. Looking forward to getting this passed, and you're on the hook for helping us get it through the Senate, no matter what.
We are engaged. We're going to be doing a lot. Trust me, I'm going to be reaching out to you for some help and sharing some content we're making. So, but I just want to say thank you from CWA, from our members, for all that you're doing for helping working families. We wish there were 100 more like you out there. Thank you so much, Congressman.
Thanks, Charles. Good to see you, man.
Thanks, Charles.
Take care.